Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Jadis Joe here once again, rocking the 80s style and on the 90s style anime hero haircut and the Save Gas Ride a Chocobo t-shirt. Should be Save Mako Ride a Chocobo, but it's not, so say that'd be still a cool shirt because it's green, it's got a chocobo on it, and it's awesome. Anyway, wanted to talk to you today because a lot of people have been talking to me about this, and I just wanted to share a few of my feelings with everybody. We'll start by saying that this morning I woke up, checked Facebook, and a friend had messaged me, and he said, they're ruining it. They're ruining it. I'm like, okay, cool. So I click on the link, and it brings up a link of the Final Fantasy VII Remake promo video. And I sat there and I watched it, and I kind of squeaked like a little girl, even though I've seen it before, but something like that causes a grown man to squee multiple times. You see it. I still squee when I watch Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, even though I've seen it like 70 times. But then I messaged him back. I'm like, I think it's going to be good. And he goes, meh. It's like, what? You can't go mad. And then, I went on, I'm got to go back and see what he wrote. But I went on and I described to him, I'm like, you can't remake a game like Final Fantasy VII and expect the new generation to enjoy it as much as we did when it first released without updating the graphics and the combat system. I mean, you can't do it. I mean, it's redundant. I mean, for us that like to play the original game, they've done us a favor by releasing it over multiple systems. I mean, I have it for the PlayStation. I have it for the PSP. I have it for, I don't know, the PS3. Don't know if I have it for the PS2. I can't remember if they released it or not for the PS2, but I do have it for the PS3. And sadly, even though I have it for all those systems, I'll probably get it for the PS4. But for the people that like to go back and play the game as it was, as it is, we have options to go back and play it. I mean, I play it every Christmas. Every Christmas I sit down and I try to beat it, and I try to, enjoy it again. And I do enjoy it, but the whole issue is every year it degrades a little more. That memory of what it was like when I first played it kind of starts to blur out as what it's like now to play it comes in. And it's still a great game, still fun, exciting. Every time there's a random encounter, it still scares the shit out of me. I jump every time I'm playing it. But the character models just haven't held up, whether it's been in the cutscenes or if it's been in, just the little character you use to run around the screen. They just haven't held up. Now the backgrounds, in my opinion, the backgrounds will always be works of art. There's something that should be displayed somewhere, because every year when I go back and I play that game, the backgrounds are just amazing. They pop, they look fresh, they look like, they look like they've just been created. And that's the greatest thing about the hand-drawn backgrounds, is that they will always look amazing. But as far as the other things, not really much. I mean, playing it this year, I don't know if I was paying attention more to it because of the remake coming out, or if I just was paying more attention to it because I was paying more attention to it. I mean, the sound is tired and old. I mean, don't get me wrong, the soundtrack is still amazing, but like the in-game sounds and the actions sounds are old and tired, and it's time for that game to be updated. Now, and here's the other thing, is a lot of people have been bitching that, it doesn't look like the old Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, and everybody that says that can be quiet, because when Final Fantasy VII Advent Children came out, I remember everybody was all like, oh my god, could you imagine if they make a Final Fantasy VII game that looks like this? And now that they took all that to heart and are making a Final Fantasy VII game that looks like Advent Children and everybody's bitching, no, it doesn't work like that. You don't get to do it. Because regardless of how they remake it and make it look like Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, or if they make it look like the older game, we're going to play it. I'm sorry. I mean, the only way that they could ruin that game for me if they go in there and start changing shit up. That's the only way. Like, if they sit there and they go, well, Aries doesn't die like this anymore. She actually died like this. It's like, no. That's when you lose my interest, and I will start bitching a storm. But yeah, I mean, there's really no point in fighting over if you want like the original games over, or if the way they're doing it's wrong, because it's really not. Because yeah, you might have some stuck up nose in the air idea of how the game, the original game is, and how they're going to ruin it by doing all this new stuff to it, and it's really not. And for people that do have that, I asked you this question, the people that do think that the original game is so good, I'm going to ask you, when was the last time you played it? Seriously. I love the game so much that I go back and I play it every year. When was the last time you played Final Fantasy VII? Do me a favor and go back and play Final Fantasy VII. And you'll realize, though it's still a great game, everything's there to make it, a 10 out of 10, you'll realize that the game needs to be upgraded. Now that that's taken care of, and probably made a lot of people upset, is what we really should be worried about is what version of the game we're getting. Because there's multiple versions when they originally released. There was the PC version, there was the, PlayStation version, and then there was a Japanese version. Each version had something different about it. I mean, the Japanese one had, 3 different weapons? 2 different weapons that the American versions didn't. It was harder. The American version was dumbed down, and the PC version, I think, had better graphics. And I believe had different options in the options menu. I can't exactly remember that now. I should have done my homework before I started talking. But that's okay. I doubt that they're going to give us, the American version. I think they're going to remake it in the full glory in the Japanese version, like it's supposed to be, where like you have the 2 extra weapons or the 3 extra weapons. You have all this little stuff, extra little stuff you can go around. Now, what would be really interesting is when the game was originally released, whether it was PC, American, or Japanese, it was only 75% complete. Like, if you remember correctly, when you first walk into the City of Ancients and there's that big seashell house to your right, if you go to your left and climb up a ladder, there's going to be a tunnel that you can go into. That tunnel leads nowhere. And that was part of the game that was incomplete. So it'd be interesting to know with this remake if they're actually going to go back and say, okay, we're going to add everything that the original creators didn't have time to add to actually make it 100% complete and to tell the story and give people extra stuff to do that you should have been able to do in the original. So that's my biggest question about the new Final Fantasy VII remake, is if they're going to actually finish it to completion, because that would be awesome, and to see all the little extra nicks and nacks they have in there. But yeah, I guess all I'm saying is don't fight. There's no reason to fight. There's really no reason to bitch or moan, because it's going to be awesome. It's going to be epic. And even if it's not, it's still worth it. I've been waiting for a remake forever. And, them, upgrading it and re-releasing it as the original has been awesome. Has been great. I mean, but to actually get a remake going, a full-on replay, and I'm actually looking forward to personally playing the Final Fantasy VII story with a new modern battle mechanic. Because to tell you the truth, playing Final Fantasy VII with the old tired battle mechanic is kind of boring. I mean, it still has its butt-clenching moments, but it's really kind of slow and tedious and boring. And that's not really because the system is that way. It's because our minds have changed. We're used to, button mashing and, pressing multiple buttons now instead of, just hitting X and selecting and all that other fun stuff. So I'm really looking forward to the updated mechanic. But hey, tell you what, if the game comes out and is absolutely horrible, like downright, they changed everything, the gameplay mechanic sucks, Tifa has, A titties instead of triple D titties, you can come back and yell at me. It's okay. I agree. I deserve it if it turns out to suck. But it's not going to suck. It's going to be awesome, and I can't wait for it. But anyway, once again, I'm Jadis Joe. If you like this video, be sure to press the like button. If you want to subscribe for more shit like this, please do. But as always, and more importantly, have fun and be safe. And save gas. Ride a chocobo. Thank you. Have a good day.